Hi everyone, welcome back to Novel iDeea. My name is Deea. Today we are going to talk about my most disappointing reads of 2024 and go over the final stats for the year. Today's tea is a hot cinnamon herbal tea from Harney & Son. I'll put a picture of it up. It's delicious. If you guys have been around here for a while, you know that I have two daughters. My oldest daughter is Kasha, and her name comes from the bark of the acacia tree, and it is a form of cinnamon, and that is the kind of cinnamon that's in my tea. All right, so I'm going to do I'm only going to do 3 of fiction and 3 of nonfiction that were disappointing. I just don't want to harp on them. Basically, there will be 3 fiction, 3 nonfiction, and then we'll go over stats and get to the fun part. Okay, so fiction. I'm going to start off just by saying none of these were horrible. The main thing was that the tone or the content is what really got me in the end on these. And so we'll start. And so in no particular order, I don't have one that I dislike more than another. It's going to be Winesburg, Ohio by Sherwood Anderson. Sherwood Anderson? I think that's right. Picture will be up. I do not own the book any longer. One of the first books that I read in the year last year, and when I started it, I was really, really liking it. However, the more that I read, the just more grotesque things became. And it isn't that it is a horrible book. Like I said, none of these are horrible. But for me, the enjoyment and what I was getting out of it at the beginning just started to get really bogged down in the content and the language, the use of language in it. And I don't mean foul language. I mean like the way that he was describing things, or the manner in which some of the characters were meeting situations and the language that they were using to express something it just started to really get to me. It's a very melancholy, oh gosh, I don't even know how to put it. It was just really hard. I just really did not enjoy it towards the end. It didn't have the hope or the grace that it did at the beginning. At the beginning, I felt like there was someone that could really change things for some of these other characters. And it turned out that not only did that not happen, but he kind of went to the dark side, so to speak. Anyway, I'm not explaining it very well. I don't want to give anything away because I think that some people, in fact, Hannah, who I read this with, she actually, I think, liked it quite a lot more than I did. And I know other people that like this more than I did. So, you know, it might be for you, but it was not a Deea book. The next one is Utopia by Thomas More. And this is a classic. And I had heard lots and lots of things about this book, I thought, I have always heard the word utopia used as like the penultimate of peace, tranquility, getting along, that kind of society, that kind of civilization and culture. And this ended up being much more of a socialist, Marxist kind of commentary. And I was really surprised. I was really, really surprised by that. And I did not enjoy it. There were so many things that I just thought that would not work. But that's not fair to these people. And there was almost like an imprisonment in some ways for the people that were part of this culture and this society. By the time I was done, I mean, I could not get done quick enough. It was so disappointing. I had such high hopes going into it that it was just going to be this beautiful story of everyone getting along and how they helped each other and worked together, everybody working for the same thing, you know, all these other things. No. That's not at all what it was. All right, and then lastly is The Villa, and this is by Rachel Picture. This I read last year for the We Love Jenny readathon, and I did not expect it to have the content in it that it had. It was a little too much for my sensibilities, put it that way. I just really didn't love the storyline. I didn't love the content, like I said. There was a past storyline and a current storyline. Past storyline I could get along with, but then even it got weird. And I just, yeah, I was so over it. So those were my 3 fiction most disappointing reads of 2024. So for nonfiction, my most disappointing reads, again, in no particular order, I really didn't enjoy any of these, and again, for very differing kinds of reasons. The Professor and the Madman, which is the making of the Oxford Dictionary. And this should have just been called The Madman. It shouldn't have had anything to do with the Oxford Dictionary. It shouldn't have had anything to do with the professor in the title, on the cover, at all. The story of an American who committed a crime, ended up in an insane asylum in London or in England, and about the time that the professor was embarking on gathering people to help them do the research, to get the words, to get the definitions, to create the Oxford Dictionary. He put out like a newspaper article out there for whoever would commit to be doing these things. And because he was an inpatient at this asylum and had nothing else to do, could get his hands on books, he committed to be a part of it. But we heard so much about this man and what his life was like and what he did to, or what happened to him in order to have him snap mentally, and then what he ended up doing in order to end up in the insane asylum, and then also some of the things that he did while he was in the insane asylum that just proved he was insane. Oh, it was a lot. And it wasn't at all about the creation of the dictionary. It was about him and what being involved in that did for him. But that's not what it led me to believe. And so I just really did not enjoy it. The next one is American Bloomsbury. This is by Susan somebody. Again, picture. I don't think I told you who the professor in the Madman was by either. That should have been in the picture. And this was supposed to be a work of nonfiction, but we had a lot of what felt like her opinions and her imaginings inserted into the text. It just came across as very cynical, much like she had a point that she wanted to make, and she was going to use all means possible to make that point, whether or not it was actually proven and truth or not. So it was really not my favorite to read at all. I'm not saying there wasn't truth there. I'm just saying she didn't back it up with anything. It just felt very much like I was reading her opinion about these historical characters. And then lastly, A Rome of One's Own. And this one I think is so well researched and even well put together. However, it was so crass, and it was supposed to be this celebration of women in Roman times and to have them take their place in history. And the way that this, oh man, there was so much profanity in this book, and it was completely uncalled for. There was no reason for it. And I think some people find it funny. And I didn't. I literally felt like I needed to go shower after finishing reading this book, and it was just because I felt like I was rolling in dirt the whole time. So that's that. I won't be reading. She has another book, and I was interested in it before I picked this one up, but I won't be reading it. That is all of them, you guys. Those are the most disappointing reads out of all of my reads this past year. Let's get into the stats and have a little bit of fun.
Statistic, yep. Statistic, yep. Statistic, yep. Statistic.
So how many books did I read? I read 252 books, which is about 100 less than the average of the last 3 years. The length of book and the amount of nonfiction were both less than normal this year as well. So I'm going to look at my notes. 252 books, 81,718 pages. There should be some graphics popping up here from Storygraph. That's where I'm getting all my information. That's where I keep track of everything. My most popular authors this year, the authors that I read the most of were C.J. Sansom. I read his Matthew Shardlake series, and then Brandon Sanderson. I reread the first Mistborn trilogy, and then also read the newest one for the Stormlight Archives, Wind and Truth. And then lastly, I read Michael J. Sullivan. And so those were the top 3 authors. I should just stick with S's. I have Sansom, Sanderson, and Sullivan. I read the Rhaenyra, there we go, Rhaenyra Chronicles, and also a novella. I'll try to put up the books that I read from each of the authors. My categories that were the most read were, these are the moods of the books: adventurous, mysterious, reflective, and informative. And I'm sure the informative is coming from the nonfiction that I read. All right, so of those 252 books, my average rating on Storygraph, even though I do not use star ratings when I am rating a book, on Storygraph, they have the option and they go up to a 5-star rating. And my average on there was 3.88, which for me averages out to about a 78%. So you can see that the overall quality of my reads was not that great. It was fine, but it wasn't that great. 32 of the 252 books were more than 500 pages. 93 of those were 300 to 499 pages, and 126 of them were less than 300 pages. I had 22% nonfiction, which is down from my normal 39 to 40% is normally what I read of nonfiction. I had my 4 categories that I read the most in were fantasy at 76 books, classics at 55 books, historical at 50 books, and then middle grade and children's books I read 42. 94% were in print and 6% were on audio. I think of those audio books though, there were only 2 that I read without the actual print copy. So I was doing both, but I only counted 1 on Storygraph. And since I was doing audio with it, I counted it as audio. My whole reason for using audio is usually because I want to keep reading a book. Maybe I need to go do laundry, maybe I need to do the dishes, whatever, but I don't want to put the book down. So I do the audio along with it so that while I'm driving in the car or while I'm doing the dishes, I can still listen to my book or I can still read my book. Those are the stats. That's everything from 2024. I think this is the last 2024 video you will see from me. Everything from here on out will be all about 2025. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you are having a lovely 2025 so far. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. And also let me know what your most read author and your most read genre was down in the comments. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll see you in another video very soon. I'm gonna go sip my tea. Bye.